The alarm bells rang throughout the massive space station as Admiral Kethvar rushed into the council chamber. His blue skin had turned pale, and his 4 arms shook as he carried the data pad. The other council members from different alien races looked up from their seats, wondering what could make such a seasoned military officer look so terrified. "Council members," Admiral Kethvar began, his voice cracking slightly, "we have a situation that changes everything we know about warfare." He activated the holographic display in the center of the room. The image showed a small human ship floating in space, barely the size of their scout vessels. The ship was called the UES Destiny, and it looked ordinary. Nothing special about its design, no massive weapons visible on its hull, no intimidating spikes or armor plating like the warships they were used to seeing. It was painted white and blue, almost looking peaceful compared to the dark, aggressive designs preferred by most galactic civilizations. This single vessel, the Admiral continued, pointing at the hologram, engaged 47 pirate ships in the Kepler sector yesterday morning. The council members shifted in their seats. 47 ships was a decent-sized fleet, capable of threatening entire star systems. "And?" asked Councillor Zixandra, her tentacles waving impatiently. She had seen many battle reports over her long career. Admiral Kethvar swallowed hard. "It destroyed all 47 ships in exactly 6 minutes and 14 seconds. The chamber fell silent. Someone dropped their drink, and the liquid splashed across the floor. Councillor Vexthul's eyes widened so much they nearly popped out of his head. "That's impossible," whispered Councillor Nexaria. "Even our best dreadnoughts would need hours to handle that many ships." The Admiral activated the battle recording. They watched as the human ship, commanded by someone called Captain Li Bin, moved through space with impossible grace. The pirate ships opened fire first, filling the darkness with laser beams and plasma bolts. The human ship didn't even seem to notice. What happened next defied everything they knew about space combat. The Destiny moved in ways that shouldn't be possible, appearing in multiple places at once. Its weapons fired with surgical precision, hitting exactly what they wanted to hit. But here was the strangest part. The human ship wasn't trying to kill anyone. Instead, Captain Li Bin systematically disabled each pirate vessel. First, he knocked out their weapons so they couldn't fight back. Then, he disabled their engines, so they couldn't run away. Finally, he shut down their life support systems just long enough to make the pirates panic before restoring them. After 6 minutes, 47 pirate ships floated helplessly in space. Their crews were alive but completely defeated. Then came the most shocking part of all. Captain Li Bin opened a communication channel and offered the pirates medical assistance and safe passage to the nearest prison facility. The council members sat in stunned silence as the recording ended. This wasn't just superior technology or better tactics. This was a level of power that made their greatest weapons look like toys, and the humans had used it not to destroy their enemies, but to show mercy. Admiral Kethvar looked around the room at the frightened faces of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. "The question now," he said quietly, "is what do we do about it?" 3 days after the shocking battle report, Councillor Nexthul found himself aboard a diplomatic shuttle heading toward the human vessel. His team consisted of the galaxy's best military analysts, scientists, and weapons experts. They had come to investigate what they secretly hoped was some kind of mistake or exaggeration. As their shuttle approached the UES Destiny, the alien team pressed their faces against the viewports. The human ship looked even more ordinary up close. It was clean and simple, with smooth curves instead of the sharp angles and weapon ports that covered most military vessels. There were no massive gun turrets, no missile launchers visible on the hull, nothing that screamed danger. "Are we sure this is the right ship?" asked Dr. Kixmallow, the team's weapons specialist. His scanner readings made no sense. The energy signatures coming from the Destiny were impossible. According to his instruments, this modest vessel contained more power than their largest space stations. Captain Park Hyun met them at the airlock with a warm smile. He was a young-looking human with kind eyes and a relaxed posture. He wore a simple blue uniform without the medals and decorations that most galactic military officers love to display. "Welcome aboard the Destiny," Captain Park said, bowing slightly in what the aliens assumed was a human greeting. "I'm honored to have such distinguished visitors." Counselor Nexthul studied the human captain carefully. There was no arrogance in his voice, no hint of the superiority they expected from someone who commanded such devastating power. Instead, Park Hyun seemed genuinely puzzled by their formal, almost fearful behavior. "Captain," Nexthul began carefully, "we've come to discuss the recent incident in the Kepler sector." Park Hyun's face lit up with understanding. "Oh, the pirate situation. Yes, we were glad we could help those merchant ships. The pirates had been terrorizing that trade route for months." The casual way he dismissed the destruction of 47 warships as a minor police action sent chills down the aliens' spines. Dr. Kixmalo's scanner kept beeping frantically. The readings were getting stronger as they moved deeper into the ship. "Captain," Dr. Kixmalo interrupted, his voice shaky, "my instruments are detecting energy levels that should be impossible. What kind of power source does this ship use?" Park Hyun looked confused by the question. "Standard quantum tap generators, nothing special. We're actually running on minimal power right now for diplomatic protocols." He said it the same way someone might mention turning down their music to be polite to neighbors. The alien delegation exchanged terrified glances. Minimal power? Dr. Kixmalo's readings showed energy output that exceeded most planetary defense grids. If this was minimal power, what was this ship capable of at full strength? "Perhaps you could show us your weapons systems," Counselor Nexthul suggested, trying to keep his voice steady. "Of course," Park Hyun replied cheerfully, "though I should mention our defensive coordinator Lieutenant Kim Soo is much better at explaining the technical details than I am." Defensive coordinator, not weapons officer, not tactical commander. The humans called their instruments of impossible destruction defensive systems. The alien team followed Captain Park deeper into the ship, each step revealing technology that seemed to mock everything they thought they knew about physics and warfare. Chief Engineer Kim Yuna was a cheerful woman in her 30s who greeted the alien delegation with the enthusiasm of someone showing off her favorite hobby. She wore grease-stained coveralls and had her hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Nothing about her suggested she was the mastermind behind technology that could reshape the galaxy. "Welcome to engineering," Kim Yuna said brightly, gesturing around a room that looked surprisingly normal. Clean white panels, soft blue lighting, and quiet humming sounds filled the space. "I know it doesn't look like much, but this is where all the magic happens." Dr. Vexani, the Science Council's most brilliant physicist, pulled out his scanner and nearly dropped it. The readings were impossible. Every surface around them pulsed with energy that shouldn't exist. "Excuse me," Dr. Vexani stammered, "but my instruments are detecting power sources that violate several laws of physics." "How is this possible?" Kim Yuna laughed, a sound that somehow made the terrifying situation feel casual and friendly. "Oh, you must be using older scanners. Our zero-point extractors probably look weird to most galactic technology." She walked over to what appeared to be a simple metal box on the wall. "This little guy pulls energy directly from empty space itself. Pretty neat, right? We can generate unlimited power anywhere in the universe." The alien scientists stared at the box in horror. Their civilizations had spent thousands of years trying to harness zero-point energy, and most believed it was theoretically impossible. The humans had built it into a device the size of a microwave oven. But how do you target enemies from such long distances? Asked Dr. Kixmalo, still struggling to understand what he had witnessed in the battle recordings. "Oh, that's the quantum entanglement system," Kim Yuna replied, leading them to another innocent-looking panel. "Every particle in our targeting computers is paired with particles we release into space. Distance doesn't matter when you're quantum entangled. We can lock onto targets from light years away instantly." Dr. Vexani felt his legs getting weak. Quantum entanglement communication was still experimental in most of the galaxy. Using it for weapons targeting was beyond their wildest dreams. "And the hull," he whispered, afraid to hear the answer. Kim Yuna patted the wall affectionately. "Collapsed matter plating. The more pressure you put on it, the stronger it gets. It's actually impossible to damage through conventional means." She said it so casually, as if describing the weather. But Dr. Vexani understood the implications. Collapsed matter was theoretical even in their most advanced laboratories. The humans had turned it into armor plating. "I don't understand," Dr. Vexani said, his voice barely audible. "How did your species develop technology so far beyond the rest of the galaxy?" Kim Yuna's expression grew thoughtful. "Well, we didn't really develop it ourselves. We found some crashed ship about 200 years ago and spent a lot of time figuring out how it worked. Took us generations to understand even the basics." The aliens exchanged horrified looks. The humans had stumbled upon ancient technology and mastered it completely. They weren't just advanced, they had inherited the tools of a civilization that the galaxy had forgotten existed. Dr. Vexani realized with growing dread that they weren't looking at the next step in technological evolution. They were looking at technology so advanced that their greatest achievements seemed like stone tools in comparison. Captain Park Hyun stood on the bridge of the Destiny, looking uncomfortable as he received the official request from the Galactic Council. His crew gathered around him, reading the message on the main screen with growing concern. "They want us to fight 3 of their battleships?" asked Lieutenant Kim Soo, the defensive coordinator. "That seems unnecessary. We already showed them the recordings from the pirate encounter." Park Hyun sighed and rubbed his forehead. "They don't believe the recordings are real. They think we use some kind of trick or special effects." He looked around at his crew, all young humans who had signed up for exploration missions, not military demonstrations. "Sir," said Communications Officer Lee Min, "Admiral Kethvar is insisting this is the only way to prove our capabilities are genuine. He says the Council needs to see it happen in real time." 3 hours later, the Destiny floated in empty space alongside 3 of the galaxy's most advanced warships. The Altarian dreadnought Thunderstrike stretched nearly 2 kilometers long, bristling with plasma cannons and missile pods. The Zephyrian battlecruiser, Storm's Edge, gleamed with energy shields that could deflect asteroid impacts. The massive Corvanian destroyer, Death's Hand, carried enough firepower to level a small moon. Each alien warship carried crews in the thousands. Their captains were veterans of dozens of space battles. Their weapons had been tested in real combat across the galaxy. Together, they represented the absolute peak of galactic military technology. The Destiny, by comparison, looked like a toy, floating between giants. "This is Admiral Rexthor aboard the Thunderstrike," came the transmission. "Human vessel, we will begin the simulation in 60 seconds. Our weapons are set to training mode only." Captain Park Hyun activated the ship's communication system. "Understood, Admiral. We're ready when you are." The countdown began. Observers from dozens of alien species watched from nearby monitoring stations, their sensors recording every detail. Many had placed bets on how quickly the human ship would be defeated. 10 seconds, announced Admiral Rexthor. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin simulation. What happened next would be replayed and studied for generations. The 3 alien battleships immediately opened fire, filling space with training beams and simulated missiles. Their targeting computers locked onto the Destiny's position and unleashed coordinated volleys designed to overwhelm any possible defense. But the human ship was no longer there. Instead, 17 identical copies of the Destiny appeared throughout the battle zone. Each one looked completely real and solid. The alien crews watched in horror as their sensors detected 17 separate ships, all reading as authentic, all moving independently. The copies didn't just sit there either. Each one began firing back with precision that defied belief. While the alien ships struggled to figure out which target was real, every single projection locked onto critical systems with impossible accuracy. Within 30 seconds, the Storm's Edge found its engines disabled. The Death's Hand lost all weapons control. The mighty Thunderstrike discovered its navigation systems had been scrambled beyond repair. The entire engagement lasted exactly 97 seconds. When it ended, 3 of the galaxy's finest warships floated helplessly in space, while 17 human vessels slowly faded away, leaving only the original Destiny hanging peacefully in the void. Captain Park Hyun's voice came over the communication channel, sounding almost apologetic. "Is everyone okay over there? Our medical teams are standing by if anyone needs assistance." Within hours of the combat demonstration, emergency broadcasts flooded communication networks across the galaxy. The footage of 17 human ships, appearing and disappearing like ghosts, spread from system to system. causing panic on a scale not seen in centuries. On the trading station at Nexus Prime, merchant Captain Vexcalar watched the recordings with growing terror. His cargo ship carried goods between 12 different star systems, but now he wondered if those routes would even exist tomorrow. "If humans can make copies of their ships," he muttered to his crew, "how do we know which ones are real? How did we know they're not watching us right now?" The Altarian Stock Exchange crashed within 6 hours. Panic selling wiped out trillions of credits as investors realized their military contracts were now worthless. Why buy plasma cannons and shield generators when humans had technology that made such weapons look like ancient swords? Ambassador Song Mina sat in her office on the diplomatic station, staring at her communication console as message after message poured in from Earth. Her superiors were confused and increasingly angry. They had sent her to establish peaceful trade relationships, not to terrify the entire galaxy into a military crisis. "Ambassador," her assistant Park Ji called from the doorway, "I have 17 more urgent messages from Earth Command. They want to know why every alien government is suddenly requesting military intelligence about human fleet capabilities." Song Mina rubbed her temples. "Tell them we don't have a fleet. We have one exploration ship that apparently scared everyone, half to death. But the panic was spreading faster than any explanation could travel." On the warlike planet of Kronar, General Thaxandor paced before his council of military leaders. "These humans have made fools of us all," he growled. "Our greatest warships defeated by tricks and illusions. We must strike before they decide to conquer us properly." The emergency session of the Hegemony Council devolved into chaos. Species that had been allies for centuries now pointed fingers at each other, each side claiming the others had hidden the truth about human capabilities. Chancellor Zix Morris slammed his 4 fists on the table. "The Galactic Accords are meaningless. If one species can dominate all others," he declared, "either we stand together against this threat or the hegemony dissolves today." Trade routes that had operated for thousands of years shut down overnight. Cargo ships refused to leave port, their crews afraid that human vessels might be watching. Invisible in nearby space, the neutral zone between Altarian and Zephyrian space filled with warships as both sides prepared for what they were certain would be human expansion. On Earth, President Chen Wu received an emergency briefing that left him speechless. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that our single exploration vessel has caused 43 different species to mobilize their entire military forces?" "That's correct, sir," replied Admiral Kim Tae, Earth's highest-ranking military officer. "They're convinced we're planning galactic conquest. Several species are demanding we surrender our fleet immediately." "What fleet?" President Chen asked. "We have 12 ships total, and most of them are still under construction." The irony was lost on the panicking galaxy. While alien species marshaled their forces and prepared for war, humanity sat on a small blue planet, completely unaware that their peaceful exploration program had triggered the greatest military crisis in galactic history. Ambassador Song Mina's console chimed with another urgent message, this one from the Galactic Council itself. As she read the ultimatum, her face went pale. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had united for the first time in history, and they were all pointing their weapons at Earth. Captain Park Hyun sat across from Councillor Nexthul in the Destiny's conference room, watching the alien diplomat's increasingly desperate expression. For 3 days, representatives from across the galaxy had demanded explanations for humanity's impossible technology. Finally, Park decided it was time to tell the complete truth. "Councillor," Park began, "I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about our capabilities." Nexthul leaned forward eagerly. "You mean your ships aren't as powerful as they appear?" "No," Park said quietly. "I mean we never invented any of this technology ourselves." The room fell silent. Dr. Vexani, who had been frantically taking notes about human engineering, looked up in confusion. "What do you mean you didn't invent it?" Park Hyun activated a holographic display showing Earth as it appeared 200 years ago. In the year 2087, a farming family in Montana discovered something buried in their wheat field after a severe thunderstorm. It was a crashed spacecraft, completely unlike anything we had ever imagined. The hologram shifted to show a sleek, crystalline vessel partially buried in Earth soil. Its design was elegant and flowing, nothing like the angular ships most galactic civilizations preferred. The ship was ancient, Park continued. Our scientists estimated it had been buried for at least 50,000 years, maybe longer. Inside, we found the remains of its crew and something that changed everything. Their computer systems were still partially functional. Dr. Vexani's scanner began beeping frantically as he studied the holographic representation. Those design patterns. I've seen similar archaeological fragments on Kepler-7. The beings who built this ship called themselves the architects, Park explained. We spent decades just learning how to access their database. Their language was completely unlike anything. In human experience, the hologram now showed human scientists in primitive laboratories carefully studying alien artifacts with tools that seemed laughably simple compared to current technology. Generation after generation of researchers had devoted their entire lives to understanding fragments of architect knowledge. For 2 centuries, our brightest minds worked to reverse engineer their technology, Park said. We assumed this was normal galactic technology. We thought every spacefaring civilization would have quantum manipulation, zero-point energy, and dimensional folding capabilities. Counselor Nexthal's face had gone completely pale. You mean, you thought this was standard? Of course, Park replied, genuinely surprised by the question. We spent so long studying their systems that we built our entire space program around architect principles. The Destiny and her sister ships used technology we barely understand ourselves. Dr. Vexani was frantically cross-referencing data on his tablet. Captain, the architects were mentioned in some of our oldest historical records. They were a civilization that vanished from the galaxy over 40,000 years ago. Most species consider them mythical. What happened to them? Park asked. Nobody knows, Vexani whispered. They were the most advanced civilization the galaxy has ever known. They had technology that seemed magical even to species far more advanced than we are today. Then one day they simply disappeared without a trace. Park looked around the room at the stunned faces of the alien delegation. So, you're telling me that we've been using the weapons and technology of an ancient super-civilization and we never realized how powerful it was? Captain, Nexthal said slowly, your species has inherited the tools of gods. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 18 hours. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive chamber, their voices echoing off the walls as they debated humanity's fate. Fear and anger mixed in equal measure, as each delegation shared reports of human capabilities that seemed impossible to believe. Chancellor Vex Morris stood at the center podium, his forearms spread wide as he addressed the assembly. Fellow beings of the galaxy, he declared, we face a threat unlike any in recorded history. One species possesses technology that renders our combined military forces obsolete. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Kronar delegation growled their approval, while the peaceful Altarians nodded reluctantly. Even species that rarely agreed on anything had united in their fear of human power. We have tried diplomacy, continued the Chancellor. We have offered trade agreements, technology exchanges, and cultural partnerships. The humans respond with polite words while their impossible ships patrol our borders. Admiral Kethvar activated the holographic display, showing the combined fleet that had been assembling in secret for weeks. Over 10,000 warships from dozens of civilizations floated in formation, representing the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. Every species has contributed their finest vessels, the Admiral announced. Kronar battleships, Altarian carriers, Zephyrian destroyers, and experimental weapons from our most advanced laboratories. This fleet could conquer entire star systems. Captain Park Hyun received the ultimatum aboard the Destiny, while conducting routine maintenance in the Outer Rim. The message came through official diplomatic channels, transmitted simultaneously to every human settlement and outpost. Lieutenant Kim Min read the terms aloud on the bridge, her voice growing quieter with each sentence. The Galactic Council, demands immediate destruction of all human vessels incorporating architect technology. All related research data must be surrendered to Council oversight. Humanity will submit to technological limitations, ensuring no future threat to galactic security. The bridge crew exchanged shocked glances. Communications Officer Lee J. looked up from his console. "Captain, they're giving us 72 hours to comply or they'll attack Earth directly." Park ran his fingers through his hair, feeling the weight of impossible responsibility. His exploration vessel had somehow triggered a galaxy-wide crisis that could end with humanity's destruction. "Sir," asked Engineer Kim Yuna from the doorway, "what are we going to do?" Park activated the long-range communication system and sent an encrypted message to Earth Command. President Chen Wu received the transmission during an emergency cabinet meeting, his face growing pale as he read the ultimatum. "They want us to destroy our entire space program," President Chen said to his advisors. 200 years of scientific achievement gone, Defense Minister Park so shook his head. "Mr. President, we can't comply. The architect technology isn't just our greatest achievement. It's our only defense against exactly this kind of threat." "But if we refuse," the President replied, "they're promising to bring 10,000 warships to Earth. How do we explain to our people that our peaceful exploration program has made us the target of the entire galaxy?" Meanwhile, Captain Park floated in space aboard the Destiny, staring out at the stars that had suddenly become hostile territory. His small crew of explorers had never signed up to be the galaxy's most feared military force. They had joined the program to make friends with alien civilizations, not to terrify them into submission. The ultimatum's deadline ticked away on every screen, counting down to a war that nobody wanted but seemed impossible to avoid. The largest fleet in galactic history dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 10,000 warships from 47 different civilizations spread across space like a dark cloud, their weapons charged and ready for the battle that would decide humanity's fate. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the small blue planet that had somehow become the galaxy's greatest threat. "All ships maintain formation," he commanded. "We'll give the humans one final chance to surrender before we begin the attack." But as the massive alien armada moved toward Earth, something unexpected appeared on their sensors. 12 ships, each identical to the notorious Destiny, floated in perfect formation between the fleet and Earth. They made no threatening moves, sent no angry messages, and showed no signs of preparing for battle. Captain Park Hyun's voice came across all communication channels, calm and peaceful. "This is Captain Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. We ask that you reconsider this course of action. Nobody needs to get hurt today." 12 ships against 10,000, laughed Commander Thaxmore of the Kronar Battle Group. "These humans must be insane." Admiral Kethvar activated his fleet-wide communication system. "Human vessels, you have 60 seconds to stand down or we will open fire." The countdown began. Across the alien fleet, weapons officers prepared their most devastating attacks. Plasma cannons charged to full power, quantum torpedoes armed themselves, and shield-breaking missiles loaded into launch tubes. This would be the shortest battle in galactic history. 10 seconds, announced the Admiral. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All ships, open fire. What happened next would be remembered as the most confusing moment in military history. The alien fleet unleashed everything they had, filling space with enough firepower to crack planets. But there was nothing to hit. The 12 human ships had simply vanished. Or rather, they had become something impossible to understand. Each vessel now existed in dozens of locations simultaneously, occupying every possible position they could be in at the same moment. The alien fleet found themselves surrounded by hundreds of human ships, all completely real, all moving independently. But these weren't illusions or holograms. Every single projection was solid and functional, existing in multiple dimensions at once. "This is impossible," shouted Dr. Vexani from the science vessel. "They're violating the basic laws of physics." Admiral Kethvar tried to target the human ships, but his computers couldn't lock onto anything. How do you shoot at an enemy that exists everywhere and nowhere at the same time? The human vessels began to move through the alien formation, not attacking but simply existing in spaces where the alien ships needed to be. Massive battleships found themselves unable to turn without, colliding with human vessels that shouldn't exist. Navigation computers failed as they tried to plot courses through a maze of overlapping realities. Within minutes, the mighty galactic fleet was completely paralyzed. Ships couldn't move forward without hitting human vessels. They couldn't retreat because human ships blocked every escape route. They couldn't even communicate properly because human vessels were somehow interfering with their signals just by existing nearby. Captain Park's voice came over the communication channels again, still sounding apologetic. "We really don't want to fight. Is there some way we can work this out peacefully?" 10,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warships floated helplessly in space, defeated by an enemy that had never fired a single shot. The human ships hadn't attacked, hadn't threatened, and hadn't even raised their shields. They had simply existed in too many places at once for conventional warfare to function. Admiral Kethvar stared at his tactical display in stunned silence, finally understanding that they hadn't come to fight a battle. They had come to witness the end of warfare as they knew it. The negotiations took place on a neutral space station, with representatives from every major galactic civilization sitting around a massive circular table. The atmosphere was tense but different from before. The arrogance and fear had been replaced by a grudging respect that nobody wanted to admit. Chancellor Vex Morris cleared his throat and looked across the table at the small human delegation. President Chen Wu sat quietly, flanked by only 3 advisors. It seemed impossible that such a tiny group could speak for the species that had just revolutionized galactic politics. "Let's be honest about our situation," the Chancellor began. "Your 12 ships defeated our entire combined fleet without firing a single shot. You could conquer the galaxy tomorrow if you wanted to." President Chen nodded thoughtfully. "We could, but we don't want to. We never wanted any of this conflict in the first place." Admiral Kethvar leaned forward. "Then what do you want?" "The same thing we wanted from the beginning," President Chen replied. "To explore space, make friends, and learn from other civilizations. We sent the Destiny on a peaceful mission, not a military campaign." Dr. Vexani had spent the last week studying every piece of data about human technology. "President Chen, your species possesses the tools of the architects. Do you understand what that means?" "We are beginning to," Chen answered, "but we never asked for this responsibility." The negotiations continued for days. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves working together, united by their shared concern about humanity's overwhelming power. But as the talks progressed, something unexpected happened. The humans weren't demanding territory or tribute. They weren't making threats or setting up colonies. Instead, they kept asking about ongoing conflicts they could help resolve. "There's been a border dispute between the Altarians and Zephyrians for 300 years, President Chen mentioned during one session. "Maybe we could help mediate." Chancellor Vex Morris blinked in surprise. "You want to end our wars?" "Wars are wasteful," replied Ambassador Songmina. "Think of all the resources and lives that could be saved with peace." The final treaty was unlike anything in galactic history. Humanity agreed to limit their active fleet to exactly 13 vessels. They would never build additional ships without unanimous consent from the Galactic Council. In exchange, they would serve as peacekeepers, intervening in conflicts only when requested by both sides. Captain Park Hyun received the news aboard the Destiny while patrolling the former war zone between 2 alien empires. His ship's presence had ended a battle that had been raging for 6 months, simply because both sides knew they couldn't fight while humanity was watching. "So we're space police now?" asked Lieutenant Kim Soo. Park smiled. "More like space referees. We make sure everyone plays fair." The first test came quickly. The Kronar Dominion and the hegemony of suns had been preparing for war over mining rights in the Vega sector. But when the human ship Sol arrived on scene, both fleets immediately opened negotiations instead of firing weapons. Commander Lee Hyon of the Sol sent a simple message to both sides. "We're here to help you find a peaceful solution." Within hours, the 2 civilizations had reached an agreement that satisfied everyone. The war that could have killed millions ended before it began. Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated. Ancient feuds dissolved when human ships appeared. Trade disputes became diplomatic discussions. Pirates surrendered without a fight rather than face vessels they couldn't defeat or escape. The galaxy had found peace not through conquest or fear, but through the simple knowledge that humanity possessed unlimited power and chose to use it only for protection.